Welcome to the deep dive. We've got this really interesting set of source materials here sent in by you. Today, we're going to be looking into the world of classical ballet, specifically unpacking these notes and a synopsis for a production of Don Quixote.
Yeah, and what's really useful about these particular sources is how clearly they lay things out. You
Yeah.
get the structure, the main players, the story beats,
Yeah.
even the history of this specific production. It's a great way to quickly grasp what this version is all about.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's just jump right in. Looking at the top of the notes you gave us, we see the sort of core details for this production. It's a ballet in 3 acts, and the choreography is listed as after Marius Petipa and Alexander Gorsky.
Right, and that word after is, well, it's pretty significant, isn't it?
How so?
Well, it tells you this isn't trying to be an exact museum replica of Petipa or Gorsky's original steps from, way back when. It means this version is based on their work, their foundation, but it's been adapted, reinterpreted for the dancers and maybe the audience of today.
Okay, so building on their legacy, but maybe making it fresh.
Exactly. Standing on the shoulders of giants, but, with a modern perspective.
Got it. The notes also say this specific staging is by Kevin Mackenzie and Susan Jones. Music, of course, Ludwig Minkus, but it's arranged here by Jack Everly. And then the design, scenery, costumes by Santa Laquasto, lighting by Natasha Katz.
What jumped out at me here was a timing mentioned. It's super specific. Act 1, 33 minutes. Act 2, 36. Act 3, just 20 minutes.
Yeah, those timings, they're not just rough guesses. They really speak to the meticulous planning in ballet. I mean, they dictate the whole pace, the dramatic flow of each act. Probably affects everything from the music cues to the lighting design, gives you a sense of the underlying structure.
It really does.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears then. From the structure to the actual story. Following the synopsis you included, it kicks off with a prologue.
Right, the prologue. This is where we meet Don Quixote himself. He's obsessed with his vision of the perfect woman, his ideal, Dulcinea. The source uses this great phrase, tarnished yet inspired. I like that too. Tarnished yet inspired.
Yeah, it says a lot, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Maybe he's past his prime, a bit out of touch, but still driven by something noble, even if it's a bit, well, misguided. And he sets off on his adventures with his squire, Sancho Panza.
And that quest leads them straight into Act 1, set in Sevilla, a bustling town square, I imagine.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And this is where we meet the main couple, Kitri, who's the innkeeper's daughter, and Basilio, the barber she loves. But, there's a problem.
Right. Her father, Lorenzo, he's decided she needs to marry Gamache, who the notes describe as a, wait for it, foppish nobleman.
Foppish nobleman. I mean, that just paints a picture instantly, doesn't it?
Totally.
You immediately know he's probably meant to be a bit ridiculous. Lorenzo's clearly aiming for status, not, his daughter's happiness. Sets up that classic comedy conflict.
Right into the middle of all this romance and the interfering dad rides Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. And they cause a bit of a stir.
Uh-huh. And in all that commotion, Don Quixote spots Kitri. And in his sort of fantasy-addled state, he thinks, wait a minute, could she be Dulcinea?
Ah, okay. So his quest sort of intersects with their lives.
Exactly. He's looking for his ideal, and for a moment, this lively village girl seems to fit the bill, even though she's got her own drama going on.
And seeing their chance in the chaos, Kitri and Basilio make a run for it. With help, the notes say, from Espada and Mercedes.
Right, they're friends. They help him sneak off, trying to escape Lorenzo and Gamache, and Don Quixote and Sancho. Well, they decide to follow them. Adventure calls.
Okay, so that leads us into Act 2, which is broken into a few scenes, it looks like. Scene 1 takes place in a gypsy camp.
Yeah, a friendly gypsy camp, the Nets say. Don Quixote and Sancho catch up with Kitri and Basilio there.
And apparently, the young couple's romance sort of inspires everyone in the camp. But it's here Don Quixote has a realization.
A big one. He has a vision of his real Dulcinea, his ideal. And he finally gets it. Kitri, lovely as she is, she's not her. She belongs with Basilio.
Ah, so he does have moments where he sees things clearly.
Yeah, it adds a bit of depth, right? He's not just completely lost in fantasy all the time. He recognizes their love is real, and it's separate from his own quest.
But right after that moment of clarity about Kitri comes the most famous bit, the windmills.
The windmills. Classic. The wind picks up, and Don Quixote, despite just realizing Kitri wasn't Dulcinea, well, his delusion kicks back in. He thinks a windmill is a giant, threatening his true ideal lady.
And he attacks it.
He does. And, well, spoiler alert, the windmill wins. He gets knocked down, collapses, and falls asleep. Which conveniently leads us into Act 2, Scene 2, the dream.
Okay, so after the chaos, a dream sequence. What happens there?
It's this sort of enchanted vision, beautiful maidens, very ethereal. It's his ideal world, basically.
Now, this is interesting. The notes point out that even though he just realized Kitri wasn't his real-world Dulcinea, in the dream, her image symbolizes Dulcinea.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? It suggests his subconscious is still processing her. Maybe. Perhaps his ideal can sort of borrow the form of someone real he connected with.
Right.
Or maybe Kitri's spirit, her energy, embodies qualities he links to Dulcinea, even if she isn't literally her. It adds a nice psychological touch, I think.
It does. But the dream doesn't last. Act 2, Scene 3, Sunrise, Lorenzo and Gamache show up.
Yep, they finally track them down. But Don Quixote's had that realization now, right? He's sympathetic to Kitri and Basilio, so he actually tries to mislead the pursuers, tries to send them off on the wrong track.
Oh. So he goes from potentially messing things up by thinking Kitri's Dulcinea to actively trying to help them.
Exactly. He becomes their unlikely protector, using his knightly skills, such as they are, to try and help them out.
But it doesn't quite work, because Act 2, Scene 4 finds them all in a tavern. And they're discovered.
Right. Lorenzo's fury. He basically forces Kitri to accept Gamache. Things look pretty bleak for the lovers until
Basilio pulls off a pretty dramatic stunt. He fakes. Well, the notes put suicide in quotes.
Yeah, the quotes are important there. And later it calls it a farce. It signals this isn't, tragic. It's very theatrical. Basilio's putting on a show.
A very convincing show, apparently. Because Kitri plays along perfectly. She gets the farce, understands the plan immediately.
Uh-huh. And she begs Don Quixote to persuade Lorenzo to grant Basilio's dying wish, which is to marry Kitri, right there, next to his corpse.
Brilliant. And of course, Lorenzo agrees.
And boom, Basilio springs back to life. It's checkmate. Lorenzo's trapped. He's already agreed to the marriage.
It's actually pretty funny. The notes say Kitri leaves to get ready for the wedding, while Don Quixote and Basilio salute Lorenzo and Gamache for, quote, stoically accepting the inevitable.
I love that, stoically accepting the inevitable. It just sums up the comedic victory, doesn't it? Underscores that this ballet, while it has romance and chivalry, it's really got this strong comedic, almost farcical thread running through it.
Absolutely. Which brings us finally to Act 3, the wedding.
The happy ending. The whole village is celebrating Kitri and Basilio getting married.
And Don Quixote's there.
He is. He congratulates the couple. He played his part, helped make it happen. And then, true to form, he bids them farewell. The synopsis says he resumes his everlasting adventures.
Perfect ending for him. Always on to the next quest.
Exactly. His journey continues.
Now, before we wrap up, these notes you sent also give us a really cool look at the history, the lineage of this specific production. It's not just a standalone thing.
Not at all. It traces it right back. The world premiere, choreography by Marius Petipa, Bolshoi Theater, Moscow, December 14th, 1869. It even names the first Kitri and Basil, Anna Soboshenskaya and Sugai Sokolov.
Wow, 1869. And then Petipa did another version.
Yeah, just 2 years later, 1871. Revised it for the Imperial Ballet in St. Petersburg. Different lead dancers then, Alexander Virginia and Lev Ivanov, who later became a famous choreographer himself, actually.
So those Petipa versions are like the bedrock.
Absolutely, so the foundation. And the notes then jump ahead, showing how the ballet kept evolving.
Yeah.
Mentions Mikhail Baryshnikov's production from 1978, sometimes called Kitri's Wedding, apparently.
Oh, Kitri's Wedding. That's interesting. Shifts the focus a bit, maybe?
Could be. Suggests maybe Baryshnikov wanted to really center it on the young lovers, Then it lists Vladimir Vasiliev's staging. Its American Ballet Theater premiere was in Chicago, 1991.
Okay, so several major restagings. And then it connects to this production.
Yeah.
The American Ballet Theater premiere at the Met in New York, June 12, 1995. Danced by Paloma Herrera as Kitri and Julio Boca as Basilio. He danced it in the Vasiliev one, too, didn't he?
Looks like it, yeah. So this one page of notes, it really connects the dots, doesn't it? From a performance maybe you could see today or recently, all the way back through Baryshnikov-Vasiliev, right back to Petipa in Imperial Russia. It shows how these classics live on, how they get reinterpreted.
It's amazing seeing that history laid out. So we've followed Don Quixote from his tarnished inspiration through all the village chaos, the gypsy camp, the windmill, the dream, the tavern trickery, right up to the wedding. And we've seen the journey of this production itself through time, all thanks to the sources you shared.
And, thinking about Don Quixote riding off at the end, resuming his everlasting adventures, and then looking at this ballet's history, how it's had its own kind of everlasting adventure across, 150 years, different choreographers, different dancers, different countries.
Yeah.
Well, it just makes you wonder, doesn't it, how stories, how art forms themselves. They don't just stay fixed. They go on these incredible long journeys of their own, constantly being reshaped and reimagined through time. It's quite something to think about.
That really is a fantastic thought to leave things on. Thank you so much for sending these sources over and letting us take this deep dive with you. Definitely something to mull over those everlasting adventures of stories.